Welcome to the Business Facilities Podcast, where we discuss strategies for business owners, corporate site selectors, and site selection consultants to make the best location decisions for companies across a range of industries. I'm your host, Ann Cosgrove, the Editorial Director of Business Facilities. Today I'm joined by Carl Reese. He's Manager of Economic and Community Development for Electricities of North Carolina. And we're pleased to welcome Christopher Chung. He's the CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, the statewide economic development organization that's focused on business and job recruitment, support for existing industry, international trade, well as tourism and film marketing. With a steady influx of business relocation, as well as corporate expansions in North Carolina, we're so pleased to have Chris here to talk today. We'll talk about the latest for business in the state, what's going on, and what we can expect in 2026. So welcome, Chris, and welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Ann.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So, Carl, since this is the last in a series of 4 podcasts that Business Facilities and Electricities of North Carolina have collaborated on over the past year, I'd love to catch up quickly with you before we dive in with Chris's comments. Can you let us know what's been going on with your organization, specifically some of the successes, looking back at 2025, and what's going on for 2026, and what can businesses and communities expect to see from you?
Sure, Ann, I'd be happy to, and I certainly won't steal too much of Chris's thunder because he has some great things that he can talk about in terms of successes for the state over the last year or so. But for us, a lot of the work that we do, and we've talked about this some previously, is working with our 70-plus public power communities across North Carolina on preparation for investment. So when Chris and his team at the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina contact us and say, hey, we've got this company that's interested in North Carolina, we are ready to respond to that with good quality sites. But it's just really been sort of giving us a sense of accomplishment that the work that we've done over the last few years in terms of getting sites ready has been seen by the business community, both in the U.S. but globally as well. So the sites that we've worked on so hard with our local partners, we've actually seen companies come in, take a look, and maybe they're looking at other states as well, and then choose North Carolina and choose that public power site for their location. So that's exactly what you're working towards and hoping will happen, and to see that gives you a sense of accomplishment. Moving forward throughout 2026, I think that what we'll be looking for is really more of the same, working with our partners locally, but also working with the state of North Carolina. And of course, we had early on, we had Scott Hamilton from the Golden Leaf Foundation on talking about the work that they do to help prepare sites. So working with those partners on new sites, and we'll be excited in 2026 to go to work on what we think will be excellent sites along Interstate 95 in the middle part of North Carolina and Interstate 40 a little further west in some areas that have become very hot for industrial economic development. And then as an electric company, obviously we're thinking about power all the time. And as I think most of us are aware, these days that has really climbed the list of site location factors. Certainly thinking about data centers, but really even if you set that aside, we see most of the projects now have higher electric requirements, higher use requirements than they did maybe 5 to 10 years ago. A lot of reasons for that, probably automation being one of the key reasons for that, but also certain industries that are maybe growing in the U.S. or reshoring a bit are higher energy industries. And so we're keeping that as sort of the central focus of what we're doing, making sure, again, when that call comes in from industry or when Chris and his team contact us, that we have sites that have the kind of power that these companies are looking for. So excited about the last year, excited about the future for North Carolina, and excited to hear Chris talk a little bit about some of the great things that have been happening in our state over the last year.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Carl. Let's dive right in. So Chris, I wanted to first congratulate you on the state of North Carolina being named by CNBC in July of 2025 as the top state for business, and that's the third time in the past 4 years. So obviously something's going on in North Carolina for business, and we welcome the opportunity to talk to you about that right now. So let's dive right in, kind of from the 30,000 foot view. I wanted to ask you, what factors about the business environment do you view as the most influential for business and industry that have chosen to locate in North Carolina? What are you seeing, maybe kind of, over and over, that companies are saying to you why they're coming, why they're staying? Can you talk a little bit about that, the hot spots?
Absolutely. And first off, thank you again for having me on the program. And I think it begins and ends with workforce. I mean, any of us who get the privilege of sitting across the table from companies who are thinking about where they're going to invest for their futures, where they're going to expand their operations, it doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't even matter what company, they all talk about the importance of talent. Now, that talent requirement will look very different if you're talking about a global financial services firm versus a food products manufacturer versus an automotive parts maker versus a next generation aerospace technology company. They all have, of course, different skill sets that they're looking for in their talent. But as we say, none of them can be successful without the kind of workforce that can get them to where they want to be as leaders in their respective industry. And so they need to make this decision 100% in the context of where can they go, where they will be able to find, upskill, and retain the caliber of talent that they need to be competitive within their respective sectors. We were fortunate to have our governor over in Japan and Taiwan about 3 weeks ago now, basically at 3 months ago, at the end of October, talking about meeting with companies in both of those two markets, Japan and Taiwan. They're great sources of foreign direct investment for North Carolina. But every single company that we met with, whether they had existing operations in North Carolina and we were checking in on them to make sure that they had the support they need for continued growth, or whether they were companies that we hope to recruit at some point down the road, they all talked and they all led with talent being the number one consideration. Product matters. You heard Carl say it a moment ago, making sure that when we get opportunities to attract something like a manufacturing facility, we want to make sure we've got shovel-ready sites that have the requisite land and acreage and dimensions and topography and infrastructure availability. You want to make sure your costs of business are competitive, whether that's energy prices, whether that's taxes, whether that's construction costs or wages. But all of those things take a back seat to having that pool of talented, skilled, educated, trainable labor. And that has long been a calling card for North Carolina. And I think it's a big part of why we continue not just to get great rankings like CNBC, but to post the kind of results that we have in attracting and expanding investment all across the state.
So thank you. So keeping on that workforce track for a moment, and I wanted to ask you some insight about how is North Carolina able to continue providing that skilled workforce for the variety of industries you mentioned, the variety of skill sets. We understand that you have great universities there. Certainly the community college system is stellar, has a great reputation. But just wanted to kind of ask you about maybe some high points of that. What are you all doing, you and your partners throughout the state, to ensure that those skill sets are there?
Well, those two assets that you mentioned are certainly leading our efforts to be competitive on the workforce front. We have this great public university system, the University of North Carolina system, which of course the flagship there is UNC Chapel Hill, but also includes great institutions like North Carolina State University, East Carolina University, North Carolina A&T, which is a historically black university which produces some of the best engineers anywhere in the country. These all make up that public four-year education system. Then you augment that with some of our private universities, whether that's Duke or Elon or Wake Forest or Campbell. Again, you've got that network of four-year universities which continue training students in the disciplines and fields that are some of the most high demand in today's economy. You've got those 58 community colleges that make up the North Carolina Community College system. 58 colleges from which you're never more than 30 miles away from any of those 58 schools, no matter where you are in this big wide state called North Carolina. It's interesting, our community colleges started, I think some of them were originally called industrial education centers when they were founded 50, 60 years ago. And that speaks to the genesis of why these two-year community colleges were established here in North Carolina. They were set up primarily as a way to help train and upskill workers that industry was looking for. And that tradition continues very much to this day with how those two-year community colleges are frequently the most important workforce partner at the table for many of these companies choosing to invest and expand in North Carolina. They do that through things like customized training programs where they work closely with a new or existing industry to develop curriculum, to help bring in students, to help train those students or train incumbent workers on whatever it is that that company needs from the talent that they have on their production floor or within their facility. Yes, community colleges, of course, are doing some of the traditional education that helps people then matriculate to a four-year university, but so much of the origin story, if you will, for our community colleges has been that partnership with industry, specifically around skill development and ensuring a ready workforce that companies can avail themselves of. And today that takes the form not just of customized training, but increasingly apprenticeships, which are thankfully continuing to be even more popular here in the United States as a means of addressing the labor market challenges that employers have experienced over the past 5 or 10 years. And North Carolina is leading the charge with those as well. So I think those are two parts of it for sure. In-migration would be the third. You have to look at just the incredible population growth that North Carolina has experienced. Yes, it comes at the expense of northeastern states and midwestern states like where I'm from originally. Those are the types of folks who are decamping from Illinois or New Jersey or Ohio or New York, and they're making their way here to North Carolina. Some are motivated by the quality of life. Some are motivated by the economic opportunity. Some love to have all of those. And that's what we're seeing with all these people who continue to move here, who make us the third fastest growing state here in the past 5 years. All of that in-migration just further deepens the pool of talent that companies have access to. And it also tells companies that it's not all that hard to recruit somebody in California or Texas or Florida to move to a place like North Carolina because of the amenities, because of the economic opportunity. All of that, I think, just gels into a really compelling story that we get the chance to tell companies about every time they're looking here in our state.
Well, thank you. And I'd actually like to ask you about foreign direct investment very briefly. I know there's been some pretty compelling projects there or investments that have been made. Can you talk a little bit about maybe where you're seeing the foreign direct investment coming in? Maybe some highlights of that as well.
Well, as I mentioned back in 2025, we had our governor who just took office about a year ago in January of 25, travel with us a couple of overseas locations. And as you know, Anna, that's very important to have someone like a governor leading the charge for us, especially in some of these overseas markets where the engagement of a governor can really open up doors with the kinds of overseas companies that we want to consider investing in North Carolina. And so in 2025, we had the governor at a major aerospace industry event, the Paris Air Show, back in the middle of the summer. And then, as I said, in late October, had him over in Japan and Taiwan. So a place like Japan, for example, it's our leading source of foreign direct investment into North Carolina, whether you look at that as cumulative FDI stock or whether you look at it by head count. By either of those metrics, North Carolina is number one. Japan is number one as a source for foreign direct investment. Something like 36,000 people get up every day here in North Carolina going to work for a Japanese-owned company. A great example of Japanese FDI in our state, of course, is Toyota and what they're doing in the heart of the Triad region, right outside of Greensboro, North Carolina. Back in November, they commissioned or opened up their brand new battery manufacturing plant, which represents about $14 billion of investment to produce batteries for hybrids, for battery EVs, and for plug-in hybrids. When this thing is fully scaled up, you're looking at about 5,000 jobs that will have been created by Toyota. They were already at 2,200 or so back when they opened the factory in November. And over the next couple of years, they're going to get up to that 5,000 number. That is probably the best example for us in recent years of foreign direct investment, and it's coming from probably, I would say, one of our most important source markets for FDI. But of course, we see FDI coming from Switzerland, from Germany, from the UK. We continue to see FDI interest from markets like China. That's where India, I mean, those are the places that North Carolina has chosen to invest from an FDI attraction strategy. We have offices in India, in Japan, Taiwan, and in a few points in Western Europe, because that's traditionally where we see a lot of this interest coming from. It spans across multiple sectors. Life sciences, it's been very big for us in recent years. And a lot of that sector, of course, is driven by companies outside the United States, firms like Genentech, which is part of Switzerland-based Roche. They announced a major investment here in North Carolina back in, I think it was May of last year. You've got Novo Nordisk, which is one of the leaders in the GLP-1 weight loss and diabetes drug space. That's a Danish company that's invested at this point easily $5 or $6 billion in a production plant here on the edge of the Research Triangle. Those are just a couple other names that you see from the life sciences sector. So I could probably go on and on about FDI, but the point is we see it coming from a lot of parts of the world in all kinds of different industry sectors that North Carolina has a competitive advantage in. And at any given time, it's about 40 to 45% of the deal flow that we are pursuing to try to recruit here to the state.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. And you had mentioned just now life sciences. I certainly wanted to talk about a little bit, but also the Research Triangle specifically you mentioned, which is a leading life sciences hub in the United States, as we know. I wanted to talk to you about the geography and maybe investment from a geographical standpoint in North Carolina. Research Triangle is obviously a hotbed. Charlotte region is another hotspot for the investment and innovation in the state. That of course makes sense with the R&D, the talent, the related assets. But from what we have been seeing too, there's been some increase in Eastern North Carolina, attracting a number of significant investments over the past 2 years, 2024 and 2025, this year. So can you talk a little bit about what's going on in Eastern North Carolina, maybe some of the companies that are investing there, and what do you attribute that interest and growth to?
Yeah, I'll tell you a few of the ones that I'm most excited about
Okay.
that have evolved here over the past couple of years. I got to start with Johnson & Johnson, of
Sure.
course, a well-known name in the pharmaceutical space, and what they're proposing to do with a brand new, I think it's between $1 billion and $1.5 billion in terms of a new biologics manufacturing facility in Wilson, North Carolina, which is about an hour, give or take, east of where I'm sitting here in Raleigh.
Mhm.
Wilson is just in general doing a phenomenal job, as Carl can attest. That's probably one of the brightest spots in that network of municipal power communities that Carl and his team support every single day. But J&J is just the latest marquee name to set their sights on Wilson as a future location for a very important product and a very important manufacturing facility. So Nipro is a Japanese company. So again, going back to the importance of Japanese FDI, Nipro manufactures a device component that helps facilitate the injection of these GLP-1 drugs. Nipro announced a couple of years ago a brand new device manufacturing investment in Greenville, which is going to employ several hundred people. That's really exciting too. It's by far one of the biggest business recruitment wins that Greenville has had. They actually had a couple of great ones that same year. Nipro out of Japan, and then Boviet Solar, which is a solar panel manufacturer out of the Vietnam market. That's very exciting as well. Nipro, this is a first expansion for them in the United States in terms of manufacturing footprint. We had the governor meet with their leadership back in October just to make sure everything is going according to plan with that investment. While it's not a new company, I'm also really excited about what has been called Spirit Aerosystems in Kinston. What they do out there is they manufacture the center fuselage for Airbus A350 aircraft. Just due to some shuffling around, if you will, in the global aerospace industry. Airbus is set to take ownership of that facility. It had been a supplier facility for them, supplying these center fuselages to, I think it's France, where the A350 has final assembly. But now Airbus will take full ownership of that sometime here in the very near future. It's already been approved and all that. I think there's just a few things that have to be buttoned down. But I'm very excited because based on the conversations that we had with Airbus leadership at the Paris Air Show back in 2025, I think they have some really great vision and plans for what they will do to take that facility to the next level. It already is a significant employer, 600 or 700 people working there right now in a very skilled manufacturing environment. But when you think about how important the A350 is for Airbus's portfolio, and we think that every A350 needs this complex center fuselage component, which is being produced in Kinston, I'm really optimistic about what the growth trajectory looks like for Airbus's footprint once they take ownership of that location. So those are a few things that, of all the different successes across Eastern North Carolina, those are three that really get me excited about what they represent for the community and for that region of our state.
Well, thank you. Thanks for laying that out. Appreciate that. So I also wanted to talk about the partnership, the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina that you do lead, and that has marked its 10th anniversary in fall of 2014. That's correct?
That's right. That's when we opened our doors. So I guess we are now a little bit over 11 years old.
Okay, perfect. So looking at that, that past decade, we're a year later, past that mile marker as well. You've been there since the beginning, really. So I wanted to understand what are some of the organization's achievements that you and your team are most proud of, looking the long lens over the past decade, but also, for 2025, if you'd like to, zero in on that as well.
Well, I think the results that we have helped contribute to, and again, we'll be the first ones to say that we're part of a broader team effort. I mean, it takes an entire team, as you know, from covering this industry for a long time. State organizations like ours have a role in the process. Private sector partners in the utility sector like Carl have a role in the process. Obviously, our local economic development community partners play a very important role in that process. There's a lot of different players where we all have to be executing well on what our part and our responsibility is in ensuring the outcomes that we want. But to the extent that we have been involved in all of these different deals over the past 11 years and the results that have come from North Carolina winning those investments and expansions, I think we're really proud of that. I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but it's something like $100 billion of investment. It's probably close to, if not more than 200,000 announced new jobs at this point over that 11-year stretch. I think all of us are very proud of that. And remember, our organization doesn't just focus on business recruitment and expansion. We're responsible for driving more tourism and travel visitation to North Carolina, which is an incredibly important part of the economy in places like our coast and our mountains, which may not be attracting a big battery plant or corporate headquarters, but rely so much on that influx of visitor spending to drive local business activity that supports the tourism economy. That's really been big as well. I mean, year after year for the past several years, we have hit record levels of visitor spending in North Carolina, and we feel optimistic that when we get the numbers here in April, 2025 is going to be probably yet another record year of visitor spending.
Okay, so that leads me right into my last question to you. What is on the drawing board this year, 2026? What are you most excited about, or what are some of the most important things that you all are focused on?
Well, I think it's, of course, I can never predict the future, but I mean, hopefully a lot of the uncertainty that punctuated corporate decision making in 2025, again, some large part of that was just where tariff policy would end up here in the United States and what that does to decision making. Hopefully a lot of that, as it continues to recede in the background, companies are going to feel even more emboldened to move forward with the plans that they're thinking about. I mean, in the last few weeks of 2025, we saw an incredible run of announcements. I mean, we just in mid-November alone, we had 1 week where there were 3,000 jobs and almost $2 billion of investment announced over just, I think, 6 or 7 projects that announced like within a day or two of each other. And December looked, while not as big as that, it looked pretty good. And so ended 2025 strong, which probably suggests that some of this uncertainty is starting to fade and companies feel bolder about moving ahead with their job creation investment plans. For us, it's going to be continuing to figure out which sectors do we feel like are ripe for some of that investment and expansion. How well are we positioned for them? Do we have a credible case that we can make for XYZ sector, and who are the best companies we need to approach within those targeted sectors? I think we're really appreciative, like I said, in 2025 for being a brand new governor, to have the governor out overseas with us on 2 different occasions for 2 very important parts of the world. We're hoping we can get him out there a couple more times here in 26, just because of the doors that opens up for us and the access we get to corporate decision makers and the ability to make our case directly to those companies in growth mode. That's extremely valuable for us. So we're in the midst of strategizing where those locations are around the world that we want to make use of the governor's finite time and right there. So I think those are some of the things that we're thinking about. There's a lot of stuff we don't control, so we don't really know where federal policy is going to go. We know we've got congressional midterms coming up in November. Those sometimes can pause decision making until companies have a sense of who's going to control Congress. Those things are all outside our control. We're going to focus on the things within our control, which is where do we target our finite time and resources in a way that will have the most impact on our mission, whether that's recruiting companies here, whether that's driving greater travel and visitation, whether that's helping some of our companies to export more around the world. We have 75 people and we have a finite budget. Our job is maximize the results that we get from that finite budget and that finite staff. And so that's what we're thinking about at the start of every single year.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that. We'll look forward to the what's coming out of North Carolina as the year progresses. So thank you, and thanks, Chris, very much for your time. Really do appreciate it.
Great, thank you for having me.
And thank you, Carl. It's been a pleasure to connect with you over the year as well. And thank you both, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, and thanks to Business Facilities for helping us with this endeavor.
Of course. And listeners, to learn more about North Carolina's business climate and how the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina can assist you, visit the partnership's website. That's EDPNC.com. And to learn more about Electricities of North Carolina and their work and opportunities for your business, visit their website at electricities.com/econdev. Thank you.